Okay, lesson one, I want to talk to you about some more intervals. In the past we talked about thirds. This time around I want to talk about sixths. Kind of tricky to say that sometimes, but they're very common, they're very fun to use. You've heard them in a lot of music, okay? And the way I like to think of them, first of all, the easy way to think of them is just visually. I'm playing two strings apart from each other, and I'm actually forced to use a hybrid picking. I'm using the pick for my lower note, and I'm grabbing the higher note with a finger, okay? This is what we call hybrid picking, okay? Okay? But if we look at this grouping of notes, all right? I'm thinking here in this situation of the key of G major, and so I'm going to start out with what I would consider a G and a sixth pattern on a G. And if you really look at it, really what I'm doing is sort of following bar chords here. And so it's essentially very closely tied into what we talked about with chord scales, all right? And chord scales going up the neck. And so on. It gets pretty hard to hold those chord scales way up there, or hold those bar chords. But what I'm doing here is playing the top end of that bar chord. And the notes I'm playing are the third of the chord and the root note. Okay? Now if I go up the neck, I have to account for a chord scale. I have to account for which chords in this are going to be major and which are going to be minor. If I'm in the key of G major, my second chord is an A minor chord, so I need to do a minor shape there. Basically, an A minor chord would be barred across there. Those notes would be barred, so I'd end up with those two straight across. My next chord would be B minor, so same thing, I'm going to end up with those two notes straight across. My next chord is a C major chord, and because I've got that major third, okay, the next chord in this key is D major, so once again I've got the major third. Then I get back to a minor chord, so I've got those notes straight across. That would be E minor. We'd play an F sharp minor, and back to G. Okay? So if we come down here, I need to basically be considering major and minor shapes, and how am I going to finger that for the best fingering possibility for whatever riff I'm playing. Okay, I generally tend to like to keep one finger on the fretboard and slide it. So notice here I've got my second finger on that third string. When I go to the next chord, I'm just going to move that finger up a fret and bring my third finger in to play the root note. Same thing there. The next chord is my third finger, but I'm back to my first finger for the major shape, and so on. So by focusing on keeping one finger down, I'm able to play quicker riffs, and I'm able to locate my chords easier. When you want to play around with sixths, you want to try to keep that sort of a focus. You want to keep aware of whether you're playing major or minor, okay? And you want to try to keep at least one of the two notes with a consistent finger to help you move up and down the neck like this, all right? Now I can change this over to other strings. I'm going to come over here and play in basically the key of C. So here would be a C chord, the next chord, D minor, E minor, F, G, A minor, B minor, C. And you learn these patterns by looking at chord shapes, by understanding where which of the notes in the interval is your root note, which is your other note. We're playing notes a sixth apart, and so I like to have that root note on top. A lot of the riffs that you end up playing with this are based on having a root note in the chord like that. All right, but there's a lot of times where we play chords and we play things that are in patterns of sixths that are not necessarily based on the root note. Okay. And I'll dig into that a little bit more. Understand this though, you can turn around and play sixths on every pair of strings. Well, they're two frets apart, or they're two strings apart, but with every pair of strings. Here I'll play a G scale, and I'm going to start with this G note. Now think of that kind of a G shape. So what do I have? Here's my third, and I want the open root note as my third string. So there's my G chord, my A minor, B minor, C, D, E minor, F sharp, and back to G again. So you can find your way around, and just by digging into these intervals and sliding them up and down the neck, you can really find some cool riffs and have a lot of fun with it. Again, try to get into the situation where you're locking in one of the fingers and using that as the leading finger, so to speak. That you're going to stick with that finger, and on the other string, depending on whether you need a major or minor shape, is whether you're going to change fingers. Okay? That should help you with that.